All right, so let's dive into something really fascinating today. We're going to be decoding a text called Children of the Forgotten Light by Frank Tembo. And this thing, it's described as an edgy prophetic work, so it's kind of part poetry, part really fierce manifesto. This is not your typical book. The author actually says he remembers it, like he downloaded it from the Akashic records that are etched right into his DNA. So yeah, let's unpack the map it lays out for us.
The book kicks off by asking a question that it says we all feel deep down, like right in our bones. It's this profound, almost universal sense of being cut off from something huge and ancient, like we're all wandering around without knowing our real name. This really sets the stage for a journey into memory and what the author calls a great cosmic theft. And right here, right at the start, the whole script gets flipped on a story we all know. The book argues that way before there was light, there was this fertile, infinite, kind of womb-like darkness. So light wasn't the opposite of darkness, it was literally born from it. See, in this view, darkness isn't an absence of something, it's pure potential. And that one idea, well, it's the foundation for everything else that's coming.
So what exactly is this forgotten light? Well, according to this text, it's our shared divine birthright. It's the memory of where we came from, a spark of creation that first popped out of what the author calls Mother Darkness. And the book makes a very specific point, that this original flame, this primal source code, was first carried within the people of the African continent. So that brings us to our first major idea. Our divine origin has been forgotten. The story we've all been told, the author argues, well, it starts in the middle. The real beginning wasn't some story about light conquering a void. Nope. It was about light emerging from a rich, creative darkness. It's a total rewrite of our cosmic story. And this slide really gets to the heart of the book's focus. Here, Africa is framed as more than just a place on a map. It's a living library. It's the archive of the divine dream, where the oldest memories of humanity's cosmic connection are stored, literally encoded in the DNA of its firstborn children.
Okay, so if we have this incredible divine origin, why don't we remember it? The book's answer is simple, and it's pretty stark. It was stolen. And this wasn't some kind of historical accident. The author calls it a deliberate, cosmic theft that triggered a kind of planetary amnesia, cutting us off from our source and making us forget just how powerful we are.
So how do you steal a memory from an entire planet? The author lays it out as a systematic process. First, you steal the names to cut people off from their ancestors. Then you silence the stories, the myths and songs that carried the blueprints of the cosmos. After that, you enslave the bodies to break the spirit, and finally, you obscure the truth by calling inner wisdom heresy or sin. To really ground this idea of an intentional erasure, the book uses this quote, which is attributed to the British historian Lord Macaulay back in 1835. Now, whether he said these exact words or not, the text argues that the sentiment was absolutely real. The goal was never just about conquering land, it was about breaking the spiritual and cultural backbone of a people to make sure they could be dominated. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The book points to language itself as a weapon. The author argues that the word black actually came from an ancient root that meant bleached or pale. It even formed the basis for words we now use for white. But then, somewhere around the 16th century, that meaning was inverted. It was like a semantic spell was cast to turn the word into a chain, recoding it to label the very people who carried that first flame. So all of this theft, all this manipulation, what did it create? The book calls it the invisible prison. And it's not a prison made of stone and steel. No, it's one built from symbols, from words, and from belief systems, all designed to keep us in a state of amnesia, disconnected from our real power. The author builds this idea with this really powerful kind of rhythmic cadence. It starts right here. Letters are chains. The argument is that alphabets chop up the infinite vibration of the universe into these little finite blocks. They force spirit into boxes and basically tell your mind where it can and cannot go. And the rhythm continues. Words are walls. Once you define something, that word stands like a monument and a prison. We're taught what they mean: good, evil, holy, profane. And by learning them, we learn to live inside walls that other people built, and we rarely even think to ask who built them or why. And then it builds again. Numbers are gates.
They create cages by shrinking the infinite down to only what can be measured. A person becomes a statistic. A life becomes a balance sheet. Spirit becomes data. The sacred act of counting stars gets replaced by the cold math of profit.
And here we have the final piece of this prison's architecture. Religion is a lock. It takes symbols, wraps them in sanctity, and then warns us to never ever question them. It demands belief without asking, obedience without remembering. And according to the text, it can become the final lock on the door to our own inner knowing.
So who built this prison? The book calls them the false fathers. These are systems of control that are disguised as systems of protection. This slide kind of breaks it down. On one side you have the mask, things like dogma, external authority, and fear. And on the other side you have the source, rhythm, our own inner flame, and that deep ancestral knowing.
But the book doesn't just leave us stuck in that prison. Not at all. It shifts into this incredibly powerful prophecy of return. See, this isn't a story about being defeated forever. It's a story about a great awakening, a planetary scale remembering, a reclamation of the very light that was forgotten.
So how does this remembering actually happen? The book offers a direct call to action, what it calls a ritual of remembering. It involves sitting in silence, honoring the darkness as a creative womb, and then awakening an inner flame with a simple but, wow, really powerful affirmation, which you can see there at the bottom: I remember, I rise. And this quote just perfectly captures the heart of the prophecy. That old phrase, the first shall be last, gets completely reframed. It's not a curse, it's not a permanent state of being, it's just a temporary condition. It's a cosmic cycle that only holds true until the remembering begins. And the book says once that happens, the wheel starts to turn again.
In the end, the author is very clear that this book isn't a history lesson or a philosophy. It's a map. It's a drumbeat, a signal fire. And it ends by handing the journey over to us, leaving us with what might be the most important question of all. It's not really about whether the story is true in a literal sense, but whether you're going to choose to engage with the memory it's trying to wake up inside you. So, the final question is, will you remember?